Hey, everyone. I, 28, had been with my fiancé, Alex 34, since 2020. We met at a friend's party, hit it off, and had been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then he has been working at the uni. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay. So the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly just weird. For the past few months, he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples: he told me we were going to paint our walls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, "For fuck's sake, forget it," and never brought it up again, even when I asked. Another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, "Forget it, it's not a big deal." This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on, whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work, he would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about: the apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So, I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then, on Monday, I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming, and after the last few months, I had made peace with it. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, "I want to break up." Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me. First, because I didn't pursue my academic career further, even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like it's my money, so I have the final say. That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our fucking crockpot. Then, he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters. Only, he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving, and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and fuck him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, "I'm done." I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt, but after that rant, I was just disgusted. I looked at him, probably with a disgusted expression, and said, "Okay." He lost it. He said this is exactly what he meant. That it was horrible. We had been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was okay to our breakup? I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, "Typical, of course you're holding the apartment over me," and started ranting again, so I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-50 financial split. I make good money and am happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was our money because we were building a life together. Of course, I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared. As long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me, I was fine with it. More than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split to being a seething asshole complaining about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him at this point. I don't know. Should I have reacted differently? Edit, thank you for all your opinions. It was nice to get this off my chest, lol. Just to clarify, though, I don't feel like a victim. I feel like something happened, and my relationship just turned bad. He behaved like an asshole, but that is the extent of it. Very clearly, something is going on. But he doesn't want me to be part of whatever it is, and I have to respect that. Now I just have to detangle myself legally from him, and after that, I'll just be left alone with my ugly green wall color. I think I might also adopt a cat as my ex was really allergic. Comments where Op has replied, Dan 1987 Tay, Dude basically hates himself for decisions he took without ever consulting you. He chose his comforts, but now since others seem in a better position, he is venting on you and making you the culprit. NTA, but your man has a little brain and doesn't know what to do with it. Oop, I would have supported him if he wanted to move away. I'd give we would have stayed together because LDRs are hard, but I would have been 100% supportive. Saul, I suspect he was afraid or had other reasons to turn down that PhD, or maybe never even applied, but believes he would have got it if he did, but chooses to blame you rather than acknowledge that. Hey Koala, he probably chose this one BC she would be there to pay the bills. It's more stable. Soft requirement 461, girl, I've been with a man like that. They want drama. They want toxicity. They will fuck up your life out of pure insecurity and hate. You dodged a massive bullet. I'm sorry this happened, you deserve better. Wish you the best, oop, then I hope he meets the telenovela star of his dreams. I prefer my boring happy life. Update 1, to start, Alex moved out pretty quickly after the breakup. He has been staying with a friend, and we sorted out everything like mail, subscriptions, and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Luna, but I have been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Luna, a Moon, and Kamar. She is still at her foster home for now, but I have visited her a few times, and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mom around like a shadow, and I can't wait for her to move in during the first week of December. I've already gotten her bowls, toys, and a bed by the window ready. Now on to what happened. Last week, I was out showing someone around the city. He is the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed. It was nothing special, just walking around, grabbing coffee, and pointing out useful spots in the city. Apparently, Alex saw us. I didn't even realize he was there, but later that night, I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public, said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up, and told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming though. They went from angry to desperate, with him saying things like, "At least admit you were lying to me," and, "Was anything about us even real?" It was exhausting and honestly a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, this guy isn't my boyfriend. He's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of family friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent, but Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened. Even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We are done. I've made that clear. After I didn't respond to his texts, Alex started calling. I didn't pick up, but the voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his new number too. It feels ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend, I went out to a bar with my friends. A few hours in, guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me, he came straight over. He was clearly upset, asking to talk, and I told him no. My friend stepped in, and thankfully, he left without causing a scene, but it ruined my night. It felt like I couldn't escape him, no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night, I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex, standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. I told him he needed to leave, and if he didn't, I would call someone to make him leave. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken and honestly a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote his best friend about the situation but the plea of talking to him. He said he would. I'm seriously considering getting a new phone number and possibly even talking to someone about how to handle this legally if it keeps happening. It feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Update 2, thanks for the concern and support I've received. I'm fine. Really. A lot of people suggested things like getting a restraining order, but I just want to clarify that it's not as simple as walking into an office and asking for one. The process involves proving there's an immediate danger to your safety, providing evidence like texts, calls, or witnesses, and then attending court to get approval. It's not something you can do lightly or without solid proof. And no, I'm obviously not getting a gun. I've also seen people diagnosing Alex with various mental health issues, and I want to ask everyone to stop. Yes, something is clearly wrong, but I'm not a doctor, and neither are most of you. It's not fair or helpful to label him with something like bipolar disorder or anything else without real expertise. For what it's worth, I don't actually feel like I'm in danger. In the past month, these were the only 3 incidents that happened. I don't think he's actively stalking me so much as he just knew my patterns. The bar we were at is my favorite spot, and it was a party of one of my closest friends, so it makes sense that he might have guessed I'd be there. When he showed up at my apartment, he knows what time I usually get home. The city tour is the only thing that might have been more intentional, but it could also have been a coincidence that triggered everything. Anyway, this is the end of it. Yesterday, Alex came over with his mom and one of his friends. At first, I didn't want to let him in, but he promised me that this would be the last time I ever saw him. I agreed, mostly because his mom and friend were there, and I figured it would be more awkward to argue on my doorstep. When we sat down, Alex admitted that he was going through a crisis. He told me he was mad at me, but he didn't know why. He said he doesn't like me, that I annoy him, but that he weirdly still loves me, which is why he went crazy when he saw me with someone else. He assured me there wasn't anyone else on his end either. He said he felt like he was going insane. He talked about how he feels judged for being older and not being able to give me the life he thinks I deserve. He said he hates his colleagues, hates his job, hates everything right now, and that everyone and everything annoys him. He told me he feels old and like he should want kids at this point in his life, but he doesn't, and that thought terrifies him. He said he just wants to be alone and not talk to anyone for a while. I didn't say much. I mostly just nodded because I didn't know what to say. After he was done, he told me he was leaving. He's on some kind of mental health leave from work, and he said he's leaving the country on Sunday. He's going to South America to spend time in nature and find himself. He thanked me for everything and said he was sorry for how he acted. Then he just got up, grabbed the few things he had left at my place, and walked out. His mom was inconsolable. She kept apologizing to me over and over, saying how embarrassed she was by his behavior. I told her it was okay and that she didn't need to apologize for him. She cried a lot, and his friend ended up driving her home after Alex left. I don't really know how I feel about all of this. Part of me is relieved that it's over. Part of me feels sad for him because he clearly doesn't know how to deal with everything he's feeling. Mostly, though, I just feel tired. I'm glad he's taking steps to figure himself out, but it's not my responsibility anymore. Next story, best friend flew to Texas to tell me she's dating my abscive ex who almost unalived me. When I kicked her out, he showed up at my work with threatening messages. I've tried to write this out for days now, but I keep getting too upset to concentrate, so this might be a bit jumpy. I don't have family in the sense many understand family to be. So I've been pretty much a loner with one exception, my best friend Tammy. We met in middle school and just became joined at the hip. Things changed a bit in college. My parents forced me into a Christian out-of-state college. Tammy applied and got accepted to the other college in the town, so we both went out there and were roommates for 2 of the years before I met my first ever boyfriend. I will call him Trent. I moved in with him the end of junior year, and I don't know when it started happening, but he went from charming and affectionate to controlling. I don't wish to upset anyone, so I will hit the pause button and warn you that below is some of the things he did for me to label him abusive. He would put me down and hint he could find someone better, or that if he cheats, it will be my fault since I wasn't this or that enough. It started to get physical senior year. At first it was him pushing me out of the way if he was walking by and I was in the path for whatever reason. Then he would slap me in arguments calling me worthless, a waste of his time and young years, a broken toy no one will love. I didn't have any real self-esteem, so I stayed, thinking I was the problem. And when I called home about it, I was told that the problem was me. I started to make my exit plan the day after I graduated. He had proposed, and I hesitated, and he screamed at me to ask why, then her swung and punched the wall right next to my head. I fell to the floor in fear, and he tried to comfort me and basically forced me into sex. When I woke up the next morning, the ring was on my finger, and he forced me again and later called it make-up sex, saying he forgave me for the way I treated him. That is the extremely short explanation. But there are so many stories of him forcing me into bed, hitting me or threatening to kill me, and more. So, I started to make a plan. I found a shelter in the city nearby. I started hiding things in the trunk of my car. I was in the service industry then, and so I would take more shifts whenever I could and hide my cash tips in a box of tampons in my purse. And I finally was ready and left him, left my phone. I had a new cheap one, and never went back. Tammy knew him and lived near us, but she didn't know about my plan. She messaged me on social media and I told her what happened. All of what happened. So she played dumb when he came around asking where I was, spinning the story that I was suicidal and he is calling the police to find me. He never found me. That was years ago. I am now 36, and Tammy is too. Trent is 38. Tammy became a bit religious, but I told her as long as she is happy and safe, I don't care what she leans on in faith. She started to invite me out to her church 4 years ago, and I kept saying no until I very firmly said if she brought it up again, I would just walk out or hang up. I'm not against anyone believing what they want, I just don't want or need to be sucked into it. I honestly do not mean any offense to anyone of any faith. I myself am just agnostic, and if that ever will change, I will decide on my own, but I doubt it will. She got a job 2 years ago overseas. I acted excited for her, and I was also deeply devastated. Without her, I had no one else. By this time, I wasn't in contact much with family, and I do have surface level friends, but no one that's known me in the real sense. I worked it out with my counselor and just carried on. We stayed in touch online and video chatted a lot. She would show me London and I would show her my transition to moving to Texas. We would chronicle our explorations of our new cities, and then one day it started to slow down on her end right around the time she went to visit a friend in our old college town. She then asked if she flew to Texas sometime this summer, could she stay with me a few days, and I excitedly agreed. So early this month, just a few weeks ago, she came here. She was off the whole first day, but I figured she was tired. Then the next day, we went out and got drunk. She started to cry and I got us an Uber back to my place and asked her what was wrong. That's when she asked me not to hate her and told me everything. She's with Trent. She's been with him almost a year. I was too stunned to even say anything, and she went on and on about how it's not what I think and he has changed. She told me he found Jesus and turned his life around and deeply regrets the way he treated me. The more she talked, the more I just shut off. I didn't even have it in me to feel anger. I just stared at her frozen as she talked until she said, "Please just say something," so I did. I told her to get the fuck out. She started to explain it all again. She hated him forever, but they kept running into each other. He goes to church and showed he has changed, blandy blah. I didn't interrupt her, but when she stopped talking again, I just repeated myself. She argued more, and I would just listen and repeat until she grabbed her stuff and left. It was silent between us for a week until my dad texted me that Tammy called my parents crying and told me to get over myself. After all, it's not like I wanted to get back with him, right? And that's what I get for living with a man I wasn't married to. Then she texted the next week rehashing her argument and pretty much demanding I video chat with him to see for myself that he's changed and forgive him. She then blamed me that they can't take the next steps in their relationship because I don't have a forgiving heart and that I was malicious when I kicked her out. I've spent all of this week trying to figure out if I'm insane to think this is a huge betrayal. A deal breaker. I mean, who even dates their friend's ex, for one, but this? I blocked her after she hinted that my version of things was exaggerated and malicious, but I don't have other friends to turn to about this. I don't think I am, but and her family thinks I am at least for kicking her out in a strange city alone when she was just being honest with me. Am I? Update. Hey, guys. Sorry to everyone who reached out and I haven't responded. It took Trent 2 weeks. I had a full-time job but also a part-time service industry job as a bartender. He showed up at the bar. It's a small bar and one of the regulars, Daisy F30S, is one of the folk I did confide in about Trent and Tammy. When Trent walked in, I happened to be chatting with Daisy and she saw my reaction. She asked what was wrong and I told her that it was Trent. She wasted no time and went to get my manager. Trent sat at the end of the bar and I took my time checking in on my other bar guests until my manager Heather F50S came out with the other 2 bartenders, both M30S. Trent had already begun knocking on the bar asking for service loudly and I had been ignoring him. He got kicked out quickly and told that we can and do refuse service to him. I got texts from a new number saying it was Tammy and begging for me to answer. She called 4 times and I didn't answer. She left voicemails with Trent and one without all telling me that I was concerning them with my hatefulness, how I am alone in the world and that's not safe, who would I turn to if someone broke into my home at night, things of that nature and religious crap sprinkled in. I was still on the clock and Daisy suggested I stay at her parents'. I know her mom who sometimes comes with her to the bar. At that point I was shaken enough to take them up on it. Daisy's mom, Rose F60S, has been sweet enough to let me stay rent-free for as long as I needed, but I eventually moved in with one of the servers at the bar. She helped me look for legal representation and I filed for a restraining order using screenshots I had emailed myself prior, old voicemails, and though we could not prove harassment on Tammy's end, Trent had said enough in the voicemails and messages he had sent that it qualified for a temporary restraining order. I am safe for now and the hearing is in January. No one knows where I live currently and I've shut down all social media. I've been NC with my family as they've been pushing me to give my address so they can send Christmas gifts, but when I gave them a P.O. box Daisy is allowing me to use, they got angry it wasn't an address and that was suspicious enough for me not to trust them. It's strange but I am slowly making friendships. And seeing a counselor helps with the stress. Trent is pretty much blacklisted from the square of bars where my bar is. Word gets around. I've not walked alone a single shift since. And that's my update. Not perfect, but I remembered my password when I was checking my email for any additional stuff to send to my lawyer and wanted to let every person concerned about me that I am okay. When this is resolved, I will try to update with more detail.